Hey guys, welcome back to Proc Nation, and in this video, we're comparing two of the most budget phones we've tried out, the Realme C11 versus the Redmi 9. They're both priced at under 500 ringgit, so we're really excited to compare these. We're going to be doing a camera test and all the other specs as well, so let's get started. Now this is a Redmi 9 versus Realme C11 comparison. If you want to know everything about the Realme C11, we have done a separate video on that as well. I'm going to link that up here. This is a comparison for gaming and performance. For connectivity, the Redmi wins because it has a Type-C versus the Realme's micro USB. Other connectivity ports are exactly the same, except that the Redmi has an IR blaster at the top of the phone. You also have the comparison for the camera, obviously, because it's a 4-camera setup versus 2. The Redmi has a quad camera setup with an 8, 13, 2 and 5 megapixel camera, while the Realme only has 2 cameras, which is a 13 megapixel and a 2 megapixel depth sensor. In terms of feel and battery life, the Redmi feels slightly better and the battery life is slightly bigger with 20 mAh. The overall feel in the hand is the same. In terms of unlocking, you have a Face ID versus a fingerprint sensor present at the back of the phone. So these work exactly the same speed for both. For the processor, the Redmi has a Helio G80 with 4GB of RAM, while the Realme C11 has a G35 with only 2GB of RAM. And you do feel a little bit of stutter, more on that later. In terms of UI, the Redmi is running MIUI 11 and Realme is running Realme UI. The feel to it is really personal preference and depends on how you like to use your phone, but they're pretty similar. We also did the app launching speed test and launched Call of Duty Mobile on both phones at the same time, and clearly, as you can see, that 4GB RAM really helps, and the processor also kind of does help. I'm already in a game in the Redmi, while the Realme C11 is still on the loading screen and hasn't started as of now. This even translates to regular app usage like YouTube, etc. As you can see, the Redmi already launches the app while Realme has a slight issue, but this also comes down to the Wi-Fi, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Now, getting into the video itself, the video display on the Realme is a 720p display only, while the Redmi has a 1080p display. Now, this doesn't change from the fact that they both are supposed to be IPS panels. Disappointingly enough, they don't seem like they are. As you can see, when you have a different viewing angle except for head-on, you can see that there's a lot of disruption in your viewing angles. So it gets a lot darker from the edges and you can't really see the image very clearly except when you look at it straight head-on. So that's something to note. Next, let's jump right into the gaming performance. The game we're going to be trying out obviously is going to be Call of Duty Mobile, as we always do. The first one we tried it on is the Redmi 9. Now, the performance on this was actually very good. Surprisingly, the performance I got out of this was very similar to premium phones. Apart from that high refresh rate, obviously, this is still a 60Hz refresh rate, but the performance was very, very good. I was running it on low to medium graphics with a high frame rate, and I got pretty decent performance and even a pretty easy win, and I felt very smooth using this. The graphics I set it to for best performance was low to high frame rate, and you can also customize your BR settings. However, on the Realme, it's not the same story at all. If you guys have seen our Realme C11 video previously, I did have an issue with the performance of it. In terms of graphics and latency, there's a huge issue. There's lag not just in the game with the FPS, but also with your ping. And as you can see right there, my ping just fluctuates like crazy when playing on the Realme. This is also attributed to a lot of different things. We'll talk about that later with the Wi-Fi. Not to say you won't definitely get a win. It's pretty okay to get a win. You can play on it, but the graphics quality, frame rate can be high, but your quality cannot be very high, and you cannot customize anything else for the Battle Royale quality settings, which is kind of expected because the phone isn't really that strong. Now, this is attributed also the internet speeds on the Realme being terrible because there is no 5G support, while Redmi does have 5G Wi-Fi. Now let's get to the camera performance. Now it's a quad camera setup versus just 2 cameras, and we went around, did a few tests, taking same images with both of them, trying to get the maximum out of them that we could, and compare the images the best that we could. The first image, as you can see, the Realme seems slightly wider at its basic camera, but the colors are kind of the same. Redmi gives you that ultra-wide sensor that the Realme definitely lacks, and you can see how much more info you get. Even in this image, as you can clearly see, I haven't moved position at all. The HDR is slightly better on Realme, but wider on the Redmi. Same for this image, 1x lens looks almost the same. Redmi slightly tighter, but then it has the ultra wide to really zoom out, while Realme is kind of restricted to that 1x zoom. In this case, you can see the ultra wide on the Redmi versus the Realme 1x. However, when it comes to telephoto, Realme can go up to 4 times, while Redmi only does 2x in telephoto zoom. Next, we did a Realme versus Redmi portrait test just to see skin tones and colors when a person is in the frame. As you can see, the image quality is quite good across both phones. Realme has a surprisingly nice bokeh and also image quality. The selfie camera as well, performance is quite similar. Alright, so now we're doing the front camera video recording test on both the Redmi Note 9 and the Realme C11. Now from what the phone screen looks like, it feels like the HDR performance is really good on the Realme C11, but the sharpening is over sharpened on the Xiaomi Redmi Note 9. But I've always been proved wrong with these tests when I put it on the laptop, so I'm more interested to see what it looks like on the laptop rather than the phone screen. Again, the HDR looks a lot better on the Realme C11, but we'll have to see on that later. Yeah, my skin tone looks more realistic on the Redmi, but the HDR, like I said, just, I don't know, it feels like it's overdone. But we're gonna check out this on the laptop, so yeah, let's get back to that. Alright, so this is now a back camera test for the Realme C11. As you can see, the sun is kind of moving behind us, so we're gonna see it's overexposed and underexposed by itself. But right now what you should be focusing on is the skin tones and whether sharpening is crazy or not. And also you're gonna be hearing the sound from the mic on the Realme C11. But now, let's switch over to the Redmi 9. Alright, so now we're rolling on the Redmi 9 and this is the video from the Redmi 9. What you can see is coming out straight from the camera and what you're hearing is from the camera as well. This is the camera at 1x zoom. It does an ultra-wide mode as well as telephoto, while the Realme C11 only has a 1x and telephoto. So there's no ultra-wide on that. We're going to test out the ultra-wide on this now. So without moving location, we're in the same spot, same distance, and this is what the ultra-wide looks like. As you can see, there's a lot more background to be exposed to when you're using the ultra-wide, which is what you're lacking on the Realme C11. In terms of color and exposure, it's kind of exactly the same. I can't really see yet. We're going to see that on the laptop later. Now, using both these phones has been a lot of fun in terms of testing out budget phones, but let us know what you think, which is better. Alright, so as you guys saw from that previous section, that is the comparison between both of these phones. They're priced very close to each other, but the performance difference is significantly different. So the review we did on the Realme C11, we did it a while back, and a lot of people said the phone is pretty terrible. And using it over time, it kind of lives up to that. It's not the best phone. The price has dropped even further, but yeah, the performance is very cheap as well, so that's something you need to know. But when it comes to the Redmi, the RAM is double, the performance is double. I feel like you could use this way longer than you could use this one. Usually when we do these versus videos, I give you a very unbiased opinion on these phones about whether this makes sense for you or this makes sense for you. In this case, for the price point, just don't buy this one. Buy this one. It makes a lot more sense. You've got 5G Wi-Fi on this, and this costs like less than 500 bucks, which is crazy. So this one, as you could see, when I was playing games or surfing the internet speeds were a lot slower on the Realme because it just doesn't have that 5G support even for Wi-Fi. And when it comes to the graphics capabilities, Redmi did a lot better as well. When it comes to the camera performance, you guys saw the results on screen. Everything else day to day, I feel like the Redmi is still the better choice just because the performance is smoother and you don't really feel a difference where you're using a cheaper phone or a budget phone with the processor. So definitely recommend this over this. Don't buy this one. It's pretty bad. Buy this one. Thank you guys for watching. We really hope you enjoyed this video and this comparison. If you did, make sure you hit that like button and do consider subscribing for more content just like this. And we might just do the recommendations that you give us in the comments. So definitely write that in the comments. Thank you guys for watching and we'll see you again in the next video.